Welcome to episode 2 of the Hump Day Huddle here on the Horns Illustrated YouTube channel, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Joseph Duffy. Joe, how's your week been?
It's been awesome, man. Great to be back in the win column. We're extending the win column with a much better look on the field. Glad to be talking it with you as always, Ryan.
And real quick before we get to the burnt orange, I think it'd be appropriate if we shout out the Syracuse orange, where Joe is currently plying his trade in their master's program, renowned journalism program up there at the Cuse. And Fran Brown had those boys ready to play in Clemson, South Carolina. Big win for the Orange. Brief thoughts, Joe.
It's still very hard to gauge what this team is, and this Syracuse team is not known to exactly be full steam ahead for all 12 games. Sometimes they can start off really hot and then they hit a midseason wall, but Coach Fran Brown has been off to a dynamic start going into a season and a half with the program, already having 10 wins last year, which they're just not used to in Syracuse. And there's some people around here with a different kind of buzz saying, I've never seen a win that dominant for the Syracuse program. Might be the biggest win of their lives as Syracuse fans. So that was a really cool victory for the Orange down in South Carolina to beat Dabo Swinney, who his Clemson squad, man. I haven't seen Clemson look this weak in a long time, possibly
Mm-mm.
ever in my life. This is a different Clemson Tigers team. And I have to say, I kind of saw a little bit of hint of it, not necessarily being a national title contender. I thought it was a little bit overblown. People were saying they could possibly be a number one team. I never saw it, but I didn't think they'd be, what we just saw this past Saturday. They looked completely out of it. They didn't look like they really could have competed at all, and that was in Death Valley of all places. And they were getting knocked around by the Syracuse Orange. Wow.
I would say so. And I actually also wanted to start with this, not just because of Joe's Syracuse connection, but also due to the fact that, you know, this Clemson program, when you see losses like that, it signifies a program that is falling behind. We all thought Dabo was beginning to figure out the NIL era and the transfer portal era, and I understand wanting to only recruit and not want to get transfers. Okay, fine. That's the way you do it. But you can't do that at a school like Clemson that doesn't have the NIL funds. Like, let's face it, these Big Ten schools have much bigger NIL conglomerates, much bigger university enrollments, much more graduates who go on to achieve high things. And why do you see now that a lot of these good academic schools are suddenly getting very good or frisky in football? Vanderbilt has a legit football program now, and it's not just because of Diego Pavia. You can't tell me that isn't partly because of the NIL apparatus and the success that their alumni have.
Oh, I mean, clearly with Vanderbilt, and I love that. That's a team that's never supposed to be good, never good at all. NIL has changed the game, and you're seeing a lot of guys or a lot of coaches rather walk away from the sport because it's just becoming all out of whack. And you've seen like the UVA coach and Tony Bennett leave, and Bruce Pearl is now gone in basketball, and you've seen
On
Nick
the eve
Saban,
of
of
the
course,
season,
leave.
both of them, right
Yeah,
before the season was due to start. Very
some
peculiar.
some coaches just saying, I don't want to deal with it anymore. It's just too much. I'm done. I can get some of their perspective, but you got to think, especially like a guy like Nick Saban saying, I can't pay my guys underneath the table anymore. Everybody's getting a fair shot now. Everybody could pay each other
Yeah.
right in front of, the big bosses of college football, and no one's getting suspended or getting caught for it anymore. It evens the table for sure. So I don't know what it is about Dabo Swinney that made him think like maybe he thought he had like a moral high ground for not wanting to use NIL or something, but it's turned out to really bite him in the you know what. And he's had some NIL signings. No, I don't want to act like he never has had any, but it may be too little too late for the Tigers. And I don't know how he's going to bounce back from this because this is one of the worst starts we've seen from Dabo Swinney and the Tigers in a long, long time. But yeah, NIL is here to stay, and unfortunately, there's nothing else you can do about it. I know they tried to readjust the transfer portal, but NIL is here to stay.
But fortunately, and now we got to get to Texas, it has worked out for Texas, expansive NIL collective. The what is it? The Texas One Fund
Mhm.
got set up early. A lot of schools were behind on their collectives. Now you don't necessarily have to work through the collectives as much because of the House settlement, but I mean, you just saw the talent discrepancy on the field on Saturday, Joe, and I understand this is Sam Houston. I personally didn't know. I know of the man Sam Houston. I knew of the city of Huntsville. I had no idea Sam Houston University was in Huntsville. All I knew about Huntsville was the Supermax prison. But you see the talent discrepancy on the field with Texas multi-million dollar roster versus a team that just got to the FBS, trying to adjust after some good FCS seasons, and that takes a lot of money and hard work. Um, Joe, bounce back performance for Arch Manning. I think Moore and Ryan Wingo kind of emerged as those go-to guys that we were looking for last week, but how much stock can you really put in this performance, considering that Sam Houston may not win a game this year? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Houston, it really hurts my heart. I know we were joking about it last week. My sister almost went to Sam Houston. I do remember touring the campus when I was a little boy. Eat 'em up cats, that kind of stuff they do. But yeah, I feel bad for them because they really, were a dominant team in FCS and they waned off a little bit towards the end. But you can't hate a team that's trying to expand and get better and raise in the ranks after having really good years in FCS ball. But I think you can take this as a positive for sure if you're Texas. You got to see sometimes for your own mental sake that you can succeed on the field if you're a guy like Arch Manning, who, some people were counting out and saying, his arm wasn't looking like it was there. He's been switching a lot of things up. There were some balls that we were talking about here and there that still looked underthrown. But, you go 18 for 21, 309, three tutties. I mean, there's not much else you can really do. You can take that any day of the week if you're Steve Sarkisian. If you're going to play against a team like Sam Houston, well, make them look like Sam Houston, right? I mean, this team just dominated them in every stat you could find. Defense, of course, not letting up a point. I feel ashamed that I even predicted Sam Houston putting up 10 points. I assumed like garbage time, maybe they could have gotten a touchdown, maybe a chip shot field goal. Now we look stupid or something, but I think you only predicted like three or points or a touchdown or something. I don't remember
I
what your
think I think I
exact
had
one was.
42-3, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 points or a touchdown. But yeah, like this team, they did what they're supposed to do. They handled business going into a rest. And so I think it is about your mental, taking care of your mental. If you're Arch Manning, who you've been dealing with a lot of, naysayers, boo birds at your last game, I mean,
Yeah.
when you face that, this is definitely a positive. I really don't see anybody saying like, I don't understand if you're saying, man, this doesn't matter at all, because it matters for the young guy who's just trying to find a way to, put one foot in front of the other and find a way to score points for his team without looking like a liability. I think it matters.
And just the stage that it's on, I understand it's against Sam Houston State, but look, you're still under the lights night game at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium. 101, 102,000 butts in the seats or people standing in the student section, millions watching on TV. You are still the quarterback at University of Texas. That's a big deal, even though it's against Sam Houston. And you talked about the mental side. I mean, this is why I always viewed warm-ups in basketball so important before the game. And I would try to get as many shots up as I could because it's about getting your form down that day. But most importantly, Joe, it's about seeing a few of them go in. And I feel like that's what you're saying. And I think, as you said, 18 for 21, 309, three touchdowns. That was very important for Arch, even though, yes, that is the easiest game they're going to have for the rest of the season. But that's still important. And I was happy for a lot of young defensive guys because the defensive performance was so dominant. The second and third string defensive guys are able to come in and make plays for about a quarter and a half. And whether they use that to advance up the depth chart next year, whether they hit the portal with that tape, I'm happy for them.
One of the big things we were talking about last week offensively, I was looking to see if they could do great in third down. And look, I mean, last week they could have, really stomped ahead early, but again, that was a very close first half, and they were also awful on third down. But look, this week,
Terrible.
7 of 11 on third down against Sam Houston State. I know they're not some amazing defense, but it's a positive in the way for your mental. You've shown that you can do it on the field. It's possible. So that right there is what I was looking for last week, looking ahead to this game in Sam Houston. Arch Manning, just looking to see if he could just throw the rock, look confident while throwing. There's some ones he just let it rip this past Saturday, so I was really proud of him in that way. Looked confident in a lot of his throws, and it's just about fixing, the headspace because it's so tough to play in front of that crowd. It is bright lights, Austin, Texas, millions of people in that city, and such loyal fans that come out to deck Daryl K. Royal. And, it's a tough crowd. Some loyal fans have been watching that team for decades. And I was lucky enough to see it in the student section, but see some of the boosters like that are next to us and some of the people when we're covering games for our student
Oh yeah.
organization. These are some of the people who are supplying uh, thousands of dollars into this program. They expect some wins. They expect some dominating efforts. So
Sometimes
when
millions,
yeah,
sometimes
sometimes
hundreds of
millions.
thousands.
Yeah.
Because it's such a NIL cesspool now. You don't know, and you don't know how much is being funneled through a business they may own. Like when Bijan and all those players were at the Lambeau dealership, that was because a Texas booster, surprise, surprise, owns Lamborghini of Austin, and so they set that all up. Um, so we've mentioned multiple times the defense. Again, Sam Houston State. I know if you compare them to even UTEP, who Texas played last week, I bet UTEP is a 20 plus point favorite. However, as a defensive unit, to not give up a first down until there is 1 minute remaining in the first half, my goodness, that is like that's like a high school level mismatch, Joe. That's like DeSoto coming down here to Corpus Christi and giving Miller the business, which should have never been scheduled on Miller's part. I mean, my goodness, like you don't see that type of dominance at the college level.
I'm pretty sure I texted you this past weekend, but I think this Texas defense is the only team to not give up a touchdown the first 3 quarters in the national ranks. Still have not done it. So shutting out Sam Houston, the streak remains. But yeah, that is one wild stat. Not even giving up a first down. You see for a lot of times these dominating by game efforts. You can give up maybe a touchdown, field goal here and there, but to not give up a point and not give up a first down is unreal levels of dominance. Only 113 total yards that Sam Houston had. Just unreal what Pete Kwiatkowski's doing with this defensive unit. They look so sound. They've leaned on them already the entire year through 4 games. Um, I'm surprised, honestly, they didn't get more turnovers, but when you see how they're getting stops, I mean, Sam Houston couldn't move the ball. I mean, they
No,
couldn't move the ball.
no.
When that happens, you'll take it all day, and they got one turnover at the end of the day. So,
That
this is a great
Jelani
effort.
McDonald pick, that was a very
Yeah,
athletic play, and he's been known to make those. He's kind of a ball hawk back there. But what I like about his game is, sorry to bring the Cowboys into this, Joe, but unlike Trayvon Diggs, who I have a lot of respect for, Jelani McDonald is not going to sell you out jumping a route in the flat to try to take that back to the crib. And if the guy gets him on a double move, he's cooked. Jelani McDonald is making these athletic plays on jump balls, stuff leaving his feet to where there is not that high risk, high reward. So I definitely really appreciate that about his game. I remember that you had me cover the Kentucky game, and he made a fantastic diving interception in that Kentucky game last
that was
year.
a fun game. More Kentucky fans than I expected in Daryl K.
Oh
Royal.
yeah,
Way more.
they
Way
showed
more.
up.
I don't know how that happened. Still to this day, that was a lot of blue in the crowd.
I think it's just because they want a fun day in Austin.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, I'm not going to say poor Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt's looking pretty legit now, but just like you
Whew.
see every away game at Vanderbilt, and it's not just because they don't have a huge fan base, it's because Nashville is a destination town. So when Bama's there, you see half the stadium red.
Orange.
When Texas is there, you saw half the stadium burnt orange.
Hmm.
It's just a thing that certain teams have to deal with. I feel like the Vegas pro teams have to deal with that because people are saying, why not go to Vegas, have fun, and then see fill in my hometown team here play?
Hmm.
Kind of the same concept, but transitioning to wanted to run this by you, Joe. Can we trademark potentially the three-headed monster for this stable of running backs? Of course, I'm talking about Christian Clark, Jarrett Gibson, who is essentially in his sophomore year. I believe he's a redshirt sophomore because he had injury problems. And then the
Hmm.
freshman, James Simon, out of Louisiana. I mean, even when you take out quarterback runs, which tend to be a higher yards per carry, in this game, the running backs were over 5 yards a carry. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Amazing. I think they're pretty much settled in now. I'm loving to see Jarrett Gibson get more carries. Of course, he's supposed to be the ground and pound, rough runner for the team. More of the knuckles, I guess, if you will, as opposed to Christian Clark. But yeah, Jarrett Gibson, especially people in the group chat like to say that I look like him or something. It's a joke that goes way back. Joke like someone thought I was Jarrett Gibson, the HEB. That was pretty funny.
Get out of here. In
Yeah,
Austin?
I've never told you that.
No.
Funny story. I'll tell you more after about that. But Jared Gibson, I love seeing him get more carries. Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I think this three-headed monster can be a problem for sure. What we've learned in the Steve Sarkisian era, the running game knows how to feast. It can feast. I think of guys like Kyle Shanahan and Steve Sarkisian, they're like best buddies, right? And it's very similar systems where they run a lot of lateral plays. They run a lot of plays with running backs, um, inside the tackles. Great schemes with the blocking of the old linemen. So it's a lot of the same stuff that you see with the San Francisco 49ers. And so I look at the running game. You plug in a lot of guys in there over the years, it can work. Anybody, it doesn't matter who it is. So that I never have a doubt, honestly, when it comes to this run game of the Texas Longhorns. So when I see this stat line of them all having 50 plus yards, multiple touchdowns, it really doesn't surprise me at all. So I love what I'm seeing for sure. When Trey Weisner comes back, I think it'll be, even better.
Absolutely. As Sark once said, actually, after that Kentucky game, Trey Weisner, tough as a Brillo pad, which was not a shot I was expecting from that press conference, but I knew I had to use that. That was fantastic stuff from Sark. I mean, and we saw Weisner really put the offense on his back down the stretch last year. They don't move the ball as much as they do in College Station without Trey Weisner. They
That
don't move
A&M
it as much.
performance
Oh,
chills to this day.
against Kentucky even great
Oh my goodness.
performance. He took a lot. He would get wrapped up and then take guys with him, two, three guys struggle forward for that extra 2, 3 yards.
I mean, the image of him on the bike, in College Station, just after a hard-earned effort, getting carried, just Sark was working him like a dog, but it was well deserved. They couldn't stop the run all game long at Kyle Field, and he's just that kind of bruiser kind of like type of runner. And when I see him play, it's very inspiring because he could have faced a lot of doubters. He could have quit in the position he was at, but he kept his head in the grindstone and kept grinding at UT and waited his turn. And it's really paid off for him. Hate to see him banged up, but when he comes back, he should be fine.
Well, and I think part of that waiting your turn is I know there's levels to this, but for those who don't know, coming out of school, he was a three-star back, which
Yeah,
is good, but not great. But out of a very good DeSoto program, I
yeah.
would call them not just a DFW power, a national power. And so I feel like when he was in that culture of excellence in high school, and okay, you might not play when you're a sophomore. You might have
Right.
to wait till you're upperclassman. You have to work for it. And then when you get guys into Texas who have been in programs like that, they know how to work for it. They
Mm.
weren't given anything because you see, we were talking about the portal earlier. The high school portal was getting hectic. I mean,
Oh
it's
my
it's
God. Oh
filtering
my God.
down.
It's getting ridiculous in high school. I'm glad I don't play football anymore, but I don't know what these coaches are doing these days. I mean, some of these coaches' salaries, I don't know if you've seen like the stats on them, like in Texas, but also like Georgia. Some of these coaches are getting paid like government officials. Like it's
Yeah,
crazy, even more some of them, especially if they're like an athletic director of the high school. But you see some of the stadiums that Texas is building, some of the stadiums that they're building in Georgia and Florida. It's like
forget it, man.
glorified D2 stadiums. It's ridiculous. You know, Allen Eagle Stadium for sure is like one of the best stadiums you'll ever see, just
Yeah.
locally from where I'm from. So it's unbelievable what we see in the high school ranks now, especially how there even is an unofficial quote unquote transfer portal. But you've known for a while that there are some teams that play a little dirty in the high school
Oh,
ranks,
sure. Yeah.
may do some things a little extra. There's a team that comes to mind for me locally, but I won't say it on here. But it's for sure a crazy game that we have to see in high school level students these days. Unreal.
Well, and that it's and for me, coming from the DC area where there's less dirty pool at the public schools, but then the private schools can just do whatever they
Yeah.
want, and they're
Yeah.
really powerful. When I was in high school, DeMatha Catholic, who viewers at home would know from Chase Young, Victor Oladipo, the Grant brothers in the NBA, um, Adrian Dantley from back in the day, so many stars to come out of DeMatha. They had a quarterback legit from Hawaii. They had a quarterback that they moved to the DC area, had him in someone's apartment, and he was from Hawaii. And I think they
Uh,
moved a lot of his family too. And that was,
Unbelievable.
when I was in high school, wow, I feel old now, 6, 7 years ago. Like, wow. So imagine what's going on now. It's just shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got to give it to Texas in this regard that they still find a way to be more reliant on the public schools for dominant athletics. I mean, you see California, you see schools in the East Coast where the private universities or private schools have really produced a lot of the great talent, but you know, you can't really say that for Texas, honestly. You still see these great schools like Duncanville and SOC and a lot of schools in Houston, public schools that
North
that
Shore.
players, North Shore, these are a lot of schools that players are going to as a public school and, go with the rest of their friends. They're not paying, thousands of dollars to go to a Catholic school. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just think that that separates a lot of Florida and California and, East Coast schools from Texas.
Definitely,
Matter of day like
definitely.
California.
But remember, the players aren't paying because if you're recruited in, it's
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah, they find a
college
way. They find a way.
where they're not charging you tuition. Anyway, transitioning off this tangent, you talked about Wisner being banged up. Now, I think it's fitting though that we need to transition into this next part of the Texas schedule. I know we have the bye week, but you can't help but look forward to SEC play. And when I think SEC play, I still think of the CBS music. Dun, 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 dun. Like
It
I
makes me
still,
sick. I have to hear that music and I see Big Ten teams
yeah,
on
you
there
see
now.
Big Ten teams. Like it
Makes
should
me
be like
sick.
Bama, LSU. But anyway, and it should be with, Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson. Anyway, Texas goes to the swamp in 2 weeks, and DJ Lagway now not playing well. He's banged up, and then the week after is OU,
John
and John
Mateer.
Mateer out of nowhere is having surgery on his hand. What was that? Like that slipped under the radar for me. Was that a reported injury during the game? Not that I
Well,
remember.
not that I remember, but props on the victory against Auburn in spite of that.
Huge
I mean,
victory. Oh yeah.
how insane that is to win that kind of game, a low scoring defensive matchup, and then finding a way to pull it out in the clutch with, a messed up hand and a messed up leg. Just kind of crazy how that worked out. So it was in Norman, definitely at home field
Yeah.
advantage, but he found a way to really, push himself through that game. So I give him props for that for sure.
Well, and I would say, it was a Jackson Arnold revenge game.
Yeah, it was
And
supposed to be.
I thought Jackson Arnold played adequately, but Mateer outplayed him. Like Mateer showed, yeah, I'm OU's quarterback now. Now, granted, there was a lot of other circumstances. Venables has a great defense there. As everyone knows, he was Dabo's defensive coordinator in Clemson, national championship defense there. He's consistently at good defenses at OU pretty much, except for that first year. Offense has been the problem. And I think they're beginning to figure it out because all they need Mateer to do when he gets back is manage games. Because that defense had 10 sacks in an SEC game, school
Yeah.
record. Now, Auburn did get unlucky with some calls. I will completely sympathize with the Tigers there, but OU's a better football team. So my question to you, Joe, is how big of a difference if Hawkins is the starter like he was last year, come 3 weeks' time? I mean, how much of a difference does that make in the spread? OU probably goes from a 4 point favorite to 4 point underdog, 5 point underdog.
I think it's a huge difference. You said it perfectly right there. I think they would definitely be at least a 4 point underdog. And again, it's just based off last year when Michael Hawkins was the starter, the Frisco native Michael Hawkins.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Uh, yeah, he went to
It's your
Frisco
hometown,
Emerson
right?
last few years. Yeah, Frisco Emerson. But yeah, Michael Hawkins against that defense, that's the story right there. If that defense is on the field
Barbecue
against
chicken.
Michael, they're licking their fingers, they're licking their chops,
Mm,
Ryan Hopper. I don't even think it even matters how Arch plays against that defense. Just find a way to move the chains
yeah.
here and there.
Yeah.
You can punch it in and find a way if you get in the red zone. I think the story is just Michael Hawkins versus that defense, and we saw what happened last year. Now, some OU fans were saying that, John Mateer won this job, but Michael Hawkins is still, a really solid player, Heisman caliber, I heard here and there. Even though he was a backup player, I don't know why, but he'll have a chance to see if that actually holds up in due time because it's not looking like John Mateer is going to play. I'm hearing that he's just going to be out for, at the very least 3 weeks to a month.
And
So.
it's also it's his throwing hand, right? It's his throwing hand.
Yeah.
He's a quarterback. Like Joe and I are not doctors. We assume you're not doctors at home. We're not rocket scientists, but 2 plus 2 equals 4. You are probably not going to have an 100% quarterback 3 weeks on it after surgery on his throwing hand. That's just not going to happen. And so
Yeah.
this has been just a massive break for Texas because then they can start accruing momentum. Now, with the bye coming up, I hope this doesn't, taper things back down and, the offense's confidence doesn't stay high, which is why you and I were texting. Nothing against the second team offense. Why was the second team offense out there as early as it was? Now, you can say to mitigate injury risk against Sam Houston, yes. And I would usually agree. But with how the first 3 games looked, I would have played them most of the game.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I mean, we were going back and forth and then like you were saying, you would think that they want to get more run in for these guys who've been
Live
struggling.
reps.
More you can't simulate this. You literally
No,
cannot
it's
simulate it in
football.
practice, especially when you decide to cancel a spring game. So you've been getting your first looks
Forgot
basically
about
just
that.
in the
Oh,
actual
man.
practice and
Mm.
season. So the actual season itself has been your live reps. Take what you can get. Maybe they just don't value Sam Houston at all. I understand. Like maybe they just think that it's not worth it to put Arch out there. Um, when your team is already stomping them, game is out of reach. Is there a point in playing him a quarter? I feel like you should have because you're gonna have a break. You're about to be off for a bye. You might as well have them out there just for a few more drives. Why not? What's the biggest risk besides injury? Um, I do think that the DJ Lagway boot storyline will end up being fine for them, honestly. I don't think he'll end up being too banged up. Are they playing this week? Florida? I think they're on the bye too as
Yes.
well.
Yes, I
Oh,
will look. Yes. No, I don't think they have a bye. And
I
now,
don't
and
know.
poor Florida, these past 2 years, they have had the schedule of all schedules because, as
Yeah.
everyone knows, this year's schedule in conference is the same as last year's. It's just flipped home and away. So
Oh my
Florida
God.
still is a gauntlet this year. Um,
Yeah.
as Billy Napier now is on, I wouldn't even call it a hot seat. I'd call it sitting on hot coals. I mean, my goodness. And he was last year. They pull out a 4 game winning streak down the stretch against some good teams, plus a bad FSU team. But man, oh no, they are on a bye. They are on a bye.
Yeah.
But this is who the Gators have left. Mind you, the Gators have already played LSU and Miami, two of the top four, and they had a upset loss to South Florida, which was very bad. Have Texas at home. Then the next week they go to Kyle Field, Mississippi State at home, Georgia and Jacksonville, Kentucky, Ole Miss away, Tennessee at home, Florida State at home. That is tough.
It's brutal.
That is
That's
tough.
brutal.
After what they've already faced, I mean, Texas has faced, Ohio State, an end table, a futon, and an oven, and Panera Bread,
Yeah,
like,
and it makes SEC fans sick. It really does. I get it. But some of these new opponents they're gonna have to face and the new schedule release is a little bit different. And I want to speak a little briefly about the new three mandatory opponent, not mandatory, but three
oh,
opponents that you'll
yes,
have every year.
yes.
Why is LSU and Alabama not like mingled with each other? Did you see that?
I think it just didn't work out like that, but it
Oh
should
my,
be. And
that's like
maybe
one of the best rivalries in college football.
now, hold on though, but you have to consider the age of the people making these decisions, Joe. You and I would say that because we grew up on, oh, here's another heavyweight fight, 7 o'clock ABC kickoff. Les Miles and LSU. Will they finally beat Saban? Spoiler alert, almost never did. But it was always a huge game, and they were the two premier teams in the conference. Whereas when some of these other guys were coming up who were making these decisions, that wasn't always the thing. Like Alabama has more of a traditional rival with Tennessee, who they have,
Yeah.
with Auburn, of course. And
The third one, did you see the third one?
who's the third one?
Mississippi State.
Oh no, they messed that up.
That's crazy.
But then again, poor Mississippi State needs the designated people to play. But like maybe you just throw Mizzou in there and give them a Mizzou. I don't know. I don't
It's
know.
just
That is pretty bad. There's also one thing that I can't believe we haven't brought up yet. Um, and we might have to end on this. Got 6 minutes left. Joe and I were texting about this during the game. I think we have similar opinions. We might differ a little bit. I get that Arch had a lot of pent up frustration. The lights have been very bright on him, too bright, and stuff got blown out of proportion, and he was having a great game. But Arch, there was no need to talk all that mess to that random Sam
Oh.
Houston defensive back
I
who
look,
was not, who presumably, we don't know, presumably was not talking any of that
I
mess.
was
It's
just
not
about to
like that
tell you
Sam
this.
Houston guy was on TV saying Arch Manning's going to win the Heisman, you know?
Yeah, I was about to tell you, I heard that Arch just finished it. I heard there was some yap that dude was doing earlier in the game. Which, look, even if he was, man, you're playing Sam Houston
And
State.
your
Like
Arch Manning rise above that.
yeah, I don't know if he should have done that and standing over the guy after scoring. Like, I don't know.
Like
I'm surprised he didn't get
when did
flagged.
Peyton? He should have been flagged. He should have been flagged. Yes. That no, that should have been a personal foul. I think
Crazy.
honestly, I
Anybody
think
else
that
would
should
get
be a
flagged.
personal foul. I mean, and I'm not trying to be all like sensitive or whatever, but you got to have a certain class. Were they up 40 by then?
No, it was plenty. Plenty.
30 or 40 against a team that has just entered the FBS. I bet if you did a poll of Texas players, where is Sam Houston State? Less than half of them would know Huntsville. And then you're going to talk mess to this random dude? Like, did Eli ever
Ah,
do that? Did Peyton ever do that? Did Archie ever do that? Probably not.
Twitter was having a ball after that. They let the jokes fly, of course. When you're a Texas player and you
Yeah.
have that Longhorn symbol on
Yeah.
your helmet, there's a target on your back. You can't be doing that, unfortunately.
And when you come from the first family of football, and you have to
Yeah.
realize that, and when your family is known for not just football, it's class and decorum. Like they're universally known for being good dudes.
And
So
for also not having the best start too, so that goes without saying a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
classy.
so I'm not going to say it was Bush League. I'm not going to say it was any of this, but maybe save some of that for the SEC games or
Please,
don't
please.
because you could have got flagged, Arch. And if that was a close game, that type of stuff can hurt you.
Hmm.
So, and we got about 3 minutes left here, Joe. Real quick, it is the bye week. What if you were a coach, you're on this staff, you can be Sark, you can be a coordinator, you can be a position coach. What are you specifically working on this week now that you don't have to game plan for a game this Saturday? What are you specifically working on based on what you've seen in the first four games?
Oh, I guess it's just about the environment. Maybe like work on the environment. I don't know. As far as the external things, because the swamp is going to be hectic when they get there. But maybe just working on more medium pass game, more medium pass game. We know they can throw swing passes in the flats. We know they can do that. That's been the Sark bread and butter.
Well,
Maybe.
until this performance, we Arch missed a few of those. But yes,
Yeah.
I understand the point. Yes.
Working on that medium pass game. It doesn't always
Yes.
have to be about going 50 yards downfield. Can you start to get more consistent on the crossers? Can you get more consistent on the yards, 20, 25 yards downfield? That's what I'm looking for.
I would agree with that, though I will say there was progress made on that. You and I each texted each other when Arch threw an absolute seed. I mean, that was just a room
To
service
more. Yeah.
football to Moore over the middle,
Yeah.
who I proclaimed was on a milk carton. You're on a milk carton no more, DeAndre. You have been found. He had a five catch, 79-yard performance. Ryan Wingo unlocking that speed, two touchdowns. But your point is astute because in these big games, you're not going to be hitting stuff over the top against bad defensive backs. Florida is 1-3. They might be the best 1-3 team of the last decade. I'm convinced. That defense is lights out and has kept them in every game. And you got to go to the swamp. And then you
Mm,
got to go to the newly revamped Cotton Bowl. So
yep.
with concourses that are just wide enough that maybe it'll only take you 20 minutes to get a drink. So there's that. Yeah.
Maybe.
Instead of 45.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
anyway, we're gonna have to wrap this one up here on the Horns Illustrated YouTube channel. He's Joseph Duffy. I'm Ryan Hopper. You can follow our Twitters below. You'll see that on your screen. And please join us next week as we prepare for the Horns trip to go see the Florida Gators.